Everyone, Your Eminence, Archbishop Nikitas, Father Chris, and all of you joining us today for this Human Trafficking Forum. January was Human Trafficking Month, and this event was scheduled to take place in person in the beginning of January in our church, but Omicron changed our plans, and we're bringing this event to you via Zoom today. I want to thank our speakers for their flexibility, Mission Ministry in San Jose. Today's event is a collaboration between the Missions Ministry, St. Anna Philoptochos Society, and Philly Inc. You may have wondered what our Missions Ministry is and how we differ from other beneficial outreaches of the Church. Our goal is to take the good news of salvation through Christ out into the corners of the world that we can reach either personally or through others. This is an answer to the last commandment of Christ to his followers, called the Great Commission. As Missions Ministry, we provide support to Christians who devote their lives full-time to sharing, teaching, and instilling faith in others. We strive to educate our Sunday school kids about the work of missions and encourage them to participate in foreign mission outreach. We provide financial support to short-term missionaries. We raise funds for an outreach called SAMP, Support a Mission Priest, to serve in far-flung areas that could not do so without support. We also publish articles aiming and inspiring the fulfillment of the Great Commission, among other things. Today's forum is an effort to shine the light of Christ into the lives of oppressed or vulnerable people who can become victims of any one of the several aspects of human trafficking. You will hear from two dedicated Orthodox Christians and their efforts in Great Britain and India to address this ever-growing threat to humanity. Then we will bring your attention closer to home when Laurel Botsford, founder and president of Wisdom International, informs us of the sometimes unseen problems in our own area. We will also show a short video at the end of the presentation, and if you have time, we encourage you to stay and watch. It's extremely powerful. Next, Cleo Constantine and Rosa Demant with Missions Ministry and Philly Inc. will present the speakers for today. There will be time for questions after each speaker, so I ask that you either save your questions until the end or put them in the chat box, and they will be answered at the end of each presentation. That's all from me for now. Cleo, you're next.
The first thing is that Orthodox and technology sometimes seem not to work so well together. On the other hand, Philly is that organization which makes people work together in a good and proper and loving manner. And I'm here to share a few thoughts with you and to say a few words about human trafficking, modern slavery, which is perhaps one of the horrors of our day and time. Philly, though, in an indirect manner, and the ministry of Saints Peter and Paul and the Philoptochos societies, as well as individuals, work against these problems and these challenges. And if we all work together, we might be able to do something good. The average person in our communities and in the greater world, the average person does not understand what human trafficking is really about and modern slavery. We think it's about the sex trade. We don't look at the nail shop. We don't look at the people working in the buildings and construction and painting. We don't look at the laborers. We don't look at the beggars on the street corners. And as you know, I chair the Patriarchal Committee that's fighting against human trafficking. And I'm going to tell you not so much what the problem is or how we might solve it, but to offer some thoughts and some suggestions so you can have a better idea. The first thing is that there are many misconceptions about human trafficking. And the first one is that it's about the other. It's not about us. For some reason, we don't think that we have those issues, those challenges, those problems in our families and in our homes. Your daughter may be trafficked and may be forced in type of slavery, and you don't know anything about it because you don't know the signs. You don't know enough about her life or your son's life and what young people are doing today. We need to educate people. We need to educate parents, teachers, so that we all work together to find some solutions. What are we doing as a church? Well, the first thing is, some of you may have seen the booklet that we published, Protecting the Vulnerable. I'm sorry we don't have more copies. We printed 2,000 and they were gone almost overnight. And the book is now being translated into Greek. We should have the Greek version in just a while. And why a Greek version? Because it was requested of us. And it is a means to inform people again about the horrors of trafficking and modern slavery. The church also is sponsoring seminars in local parishes. For those who live in Southern California, you may have come to Pasadena or have heard what happened in Pasadena and how we teamed up with other institutions and other churches, other communities. It's not about them, it's not about us, it's about all of us together. The church also sponsors international seminars and conferences. I'm sorry that my dear friend Lula Aniston isn't with us this evening or this morning for you, because Lula always came along to the conferences. She came to the Patriarchate, she came to Buenos Aires, and to wherever we might gather. And she tried as best as the rest of us should do to work against these things. What can you do as individuals? What can a church do? What can an institution do? Well, the first thing is to take hold of the situation and put people into office who are going to work against these things. Look at the budget of your city, of your county, of your state, of the school systems. See how much funding is being used to fight human trafficking and modern slavery. Find individuals who are going to put into the reality of life laws and restrictions that will force people out of this trade. Just like we have laws about narcotics, drugs, I might say somewhat about guns and weapons. As we have these laws, we need to do other things to close down the houses, the shops, whatever, that are using human beings as a mere commodity in life. You know, it's very difficult, although we might know that there is a house being used for the sex trade or for something else, to close them down with great evidence. But if you find out that they have some mistake in their zoning policy or they've transgressed some other law, we can use these means to shut them down and maybe just push them away. But if you push people enough, maybe they're going to close down. What can you do in your local parish and in your local community is host seminars. Bring in the professionals to speak. Don't think that you as an individual are going to save anyone. First of all, Jesus Christ came to save the world. We as people just try to help. But work with the professionals and the organizations, the institutions that know how to handle the problem. The next thing that you can do, don't look down on the young people, the women, or those who cross the border and are being trafficked and used as modern slaves. Do not look down on them as if they are a lower piece of life. We don't know why these people have either been forced or have taken on these identities and these challenges. The only thing that we know as human beings and as Christians, as it were, called to help them, to let them see a better life and to see a better world. The last thing that I'm going to tell you is we're going to host another international conference. maybe somebody would like to represent the ministry or Fili, to come see what we're doing. Those of you who know me know I'm a little bit creative and I like to think outside the box. We published our book on human trafficking and modern slavery. Our next one will be a resource book for cancer victims. Having a psychologist, a nutritionist, a doctor, a theologian, prayers, all sorts of things that come from our tradition to help the people who are survivors. We not only want to look at the victim of cancer, of slavery, of trafficking, we also need to look at the survivor to help that person see a better day, a more beautiful experience, and to open the arms of the church to help these people. You should know, if we do not act as a church, we are not the church. Number two, if we don't do something as Christians, then we've denied Christ, who called us to serve those in need, the poor, the naked, those in prison, and on down the line. If we don't do something, we failed our calling as human beings. I will throw this last measure out because I don't know it's possible. I'm coming to the Bay Area. I'm going to Florida, and I'm going to try to come to the Bay Area. Father Chris, are you still online? Are you participating with us? I see you there. And Father Christopher is my classmate.
Yes, Your Eminence, I'm here.
Same class at the theological school. If we could organize maybe an evening or a late afternoon, I would be happy to come and speak, to share some thoughts, to tell you what's happening in my life, but also tell you what we must do. And you cannot wait until tomorrow. You have to act now. Tomorrow may never come. I'll stop there because I've also been watching the clock. So I don't want to cheat anyone else. I will try to stay on as long as I can if you have questions for me. Thank you for attending. Thank you for hosting. Thank you for giving of your time, your talents, and your treasures. And thank you for giving of your love for this noble cause.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your speech. And I'm sure there are a few questions. I don't know if Nicole is monitoring, but Nicole, would you like to see if there are questions for His Eminence?
Yes, at this time, there are no questions in the chat box.
Well, I wanted to find out in broad terms, what does human trafficking mean? Because I don't think we got a definition. So is human trafficking just getting kids to perform? Yeah. What can you give us in broad terms what human trafficking means?
It's moving, transporting, using, abusing human beings for the wrong purposes. I'm trying to put it in a very colloquial way, and it's not only children. It's also the people who work in buildings and paint them. It's the people who come across the border and maybe wash the cars and mow the lawns. It's the young people, the young girl to make her boyfriend happy who sleeps with someone else. It's the young people who are selling drugs and on down the line.
In your opinion, is there some characteristics of a trafficker? Is there something that people should watch for? Like, how do we know when we meet a person who is doing this kind of trade?
You probably will never come into contact with the person who is doing the trafficking. You will come into contact with the people who are trafficked. If your children all of a sudden have a new telephone, new friends, more spending money, perhaps new jewelry and other things, that person is probably being trafficked or used in some form of slavery. And that could be in your own home. Doesn't mean the person ever left the home. I'm going to tell you a very quick story.
Mm-hmm.
There was a young woman who started chatting online, in these chat rooms. And she was in touch with a young man, and over the months they became friends. And finally he said to her one day, "Hey, why don't you show me your picture? I'd like to see what you look like in all these things." So she sent some photos, and he, through the computer and various devices and means, found out where she lived. She received a message, "Hey, come outside so I can meet you." And when she went outside, there was an older gentleman sitting there who lifted up a shotgun and said, "Either get in the car or I'm going in to kill your mother." That's a true story. She was fortunate enough to escape at one point. Go see the movie Eastern Promises if you want. And there's so many other movies. See the movie Taken. Do all sorts of other things. Okay? If you see people who are begging with cups, they're not the ones who get the money. It's the person who's in charge. You're not going to come into contact with the boss, the mafia man, or something like that.
Okay.
We do have a few more questions in the chat box, so thank you everyone for the questions. Your Eminence, I'm going to start with two questions from Despina. Her first question is human trafficking a global problem or is it localized? And do you consider trafficking and grooming the same thing? And if not, how is it different?
Okay. First of all, Despina is participating from down under. I know her from Hong Kong. And her brother's a priest. So let me tell you quickly, grooming and trafficking are not the same thing. One can be groomed to be used in a specific way, but people can be trafficked for their organs, for example. A person may be transported and that individual's kidney is taken out. Or we can keep on going down the line. There are even people, bones are taken and used. So these people are not groomed for those positions, but a young woman might be groomed and led into prostitution. And psychologically, at some point, she may not be able to break the connection with the man or the woman who's controlling her. And it's not only men who control the women who are in prostitution. There are also women, there are groups, and on down the line. And the other question, it is a global phenomenon that's happening. It's very sad. And the profits are increasing because arms trafficking and these other things are becoming too dangerous. It's very easy to dispose of a human being. You just kill the individual and throw him or her in the lake or bury them. No evidence.
And Nicole, is there another question or?
Yes, and then we have two more. And I know this was alluded to, but maybe if you can speak a little bit more from Julia, we have, when we see women with children standing at a store parking lot begging for money, can this be a human trafficking victim?
It could, absolutely. I volunteered in a shelter for homeless youth when I lived in Chicago. One of the two rules that were given to me as a person, there was a volunteer. One, you never give cash, never give money to anyone. You help a program, an institution. You help a facility. The people who you're going to give cash to are usually not the ones that get that type of money. They're the ones whose money's taken away, and they may be physically abusive. They don't bring in a lot of money. So of course, those people who are collecting monies on the street corners and in the parking lots are the individuals who may have been trafficked. Doesn't mean they have been. And trafficking doesn't mean taking you across the border. It could be taking you from one town to another, one state to another. And there are children who are born into a type of slavery. Remember, slavery is not new. Go back to the book of Genesis, okay? And remember what happened there with Moses. If you get to see our book on human trafficking, the outside cover shows an icon-like, and it's first Christ on the top, liberating and freeing humanity from sin, and then Moses leading the Israelites out of slavery into the promised land. And I saw that Desmond put and said, Kung He Fat Choi. That's right. I served liturgy this morning and wore Chinese vestments.
And then our last question is from Rosa. How, as a parish, can we make the youth aware of, who are trusted adults they can go to when there's a problem?
Well, the people they should trust are first parents, but it doesn't always work that way. There's a book called You Like Me, My Name On. It's about a young woman who was sold into prostitution by her mother. And the mother only had one regret. She got $14 for her children.
We're moving on. We're moving on with Rosa. Rosa.
Our second speaker is our beloved sister Nektaria. Because of the inavailability of internet in her convent and the closure of roads to Athens due to this unprecedented snow, the speech she wrote will be presented by Maria Agi. Once again, a two-minute introduction cannot begin to suffice to introduce our incredible Orthodox nun. Sister Nektaria was one of 6 children born to pious parents from Simyra. She completed her secondary education in Greece and studied in France, where she completed her master's degree in theology, and then went on to study English in Ireland and Spanish in Spain. As a master of many languages, Sister Nektaria has even worked as a Russian translator. Sister belongs to the Pathopias convent in Loutraki, Greece, where she resides temporarily until India recovers from the COVID pandemic sufficiently to permit her to return. During this time, Sister has done a miraculous job of directing all mission activities from Greece. The university-educated oldest orphans are now mature young women who have taken on great responsibility under Sister Nektaria's guidance. In 1986, Sister has taken on the part in many international theological conferences as a delegate of the Church of Greece and as a representative to the World Council of Churches. In 1989, she resigned from her post to devote herself entirely to the mission work serving South Korea, Zimbabwe, Madagascar, Cameroon, and Tanzania. Since 1991, Sister has served in Kolkata in the West Bengal area of India, where she established and directs the St. Ignatius School and a large girls and boys orphanage. She also feeds dozens of disabled, hungry street people daily, operates several schools for poor students in outlying areas, sustains village churches, provides a simple morning meal for children from a slum near the church in Calcutta, and provides health services for the poorest of the poor. There are no words to describe the strength and faith of this most amazing servant of God. I give you Sister Nektaria's words through Maria Agi. As her speech is read, she will present slides depicting the typical life of Indian orphans compared to those living in the orphanage today. Maria?
Greetings, all of you present day. I wish you a happy and blessed new year. I would like to express my deep gratitude to the organizers of this event, St. Peter and Paul Missions Ministry, St. Anna Philoptochos Society, and Philly, and for inviting me to take part and share with you my own experience on human trafficking. As a Greek Orthodox nun, I'm serving our church in India, where I'm responsible for the charitable and humanitarian work of the mission. What has been my experience of living in India for so many years? On the positive side of India, I experienced wonderful, warm people willing to share their heritage and culture. I see the expansion of the school in the town with progress such as the elementary schools now providing transportation for children who a few years ago would not have been able to attend school easily. I also noticed how colleges being built to further higher education. The high-tech institutions and better medical attention for some is also an encouraging element of the economy. This is a country with tremendous potential, and there is no doubt in my mind that it would be the next global superpower. On the negative side, despite the tremendous improvement and development of the country, I still see extreme poverty. People are living in the streets and children are begging instead of sitting in a classroom. I see people housed in nothing more than cardboard boxes in makeshift encampment along the roadsides. Unmarried, homeless young girls are having children from unknown fathers. These are the parts of the country that I love, that break my heart. After this short introduction, let's come to the theme of this meeting, on facing modern slavery. Modern slavery can affect people of any age, gender, or race. Some groups of people are much more vulnerable to slavery than others. People who live in poverty and have limited opportunities for decent work are more vulnerable to accepting deceptive job offers that can turn exploitative. People who are discriminating against on the basis of race, caste, gender, or religion are also more likely to be enslaved. Slavery is also more likely to occur where the rules of law is weaker and corruption is rife. This is exactly the case in India, that comes in first position in the statistics about the number of people living in the forms of modern slavery, such as bonded labor, child labor, girls forced into marriage at a very young age to much older men, human trafficking, commercial sexual exploitation, and forced begging, among other things. All the above-mentioned forms of slavery I have seen in my daily life when walking the streets of Kolkata or visiting the faraway villages of West Bengal. Facing such a situation, the Orthodox Church in India could not stay inactive. In 1992, the NGO was established and registered, and in 1993 named the Philanthropic Society of the Orthodox Church, or the PSOC, having as its motto, "Let us not to love with words or tongue, but with action and in truth," 1 John 3:18. In the spirit, we started thinking, planning, and organizing our steps of what to do in order to more efficiently and according to our financial capability, help those people in need and distress and make them believe in their human dignity. Apart from feeding programs for the poor and needy, functioning since 1991 at the Greek Orthodox Church in Kolkata and the 5 dispensaries in the villages, we also established schools. We built 5 schools free of tuition fees and providing free books and study materials to the students living in remote rural villages of West Bengal. We strongly believe that education is the most important tool that offers inner and outer strength to a person. Education is the fundamental right of everyone. Education helps us to be healthy, boosts economic growth, eradicates poverty, removes gender discrimination and inequality, promotes women and children rights, removes corruption, and increases awareness of fundamental rights, and so much more. Our second big project is the care for orphaned and abandoned girls. In India, the birth of a baby girl is not a day for celebration. According to a research and report made by the Save the Children India in 2016, quoting, discrimination against girls in India has been going on for ages now. Even today, there are several sections of the Indian society where the girl child is treated as a burden, restricted to the confines of the house, and giving very little or no opportunities to learn and grow in life. It is a matter of great shame that cases of female infanticide are still reported. In this field, the PSOC in Kolkata developed the second project called Save a Girl. A street abandoned girl, an orphan. Put a smile on a face, put a hope in a heart, make them dream for their lives, and help them to realize their dreams through much love and affection, and providing them a high-quality holistic education. Transform these little girls into the women of tomorrow, women with self-respect and self-confidence and economic independence. It is rightly said that when a woman is educated, an entire generation benefits from it. In 1999, the Theotokos Girls' Orphanage in the south outskirts of Kolkata had been blessed and inaugurated by His Eminence, the Archbishop of Thyateira and Great Britain, Archbishop Nikitas, at that time the Metropolitan of Hong Kong and India. The day came when, with opened arms and hearts, we started receiving our little ones. After fighting human trafficking for over 25 years and rescuing hundreds of young girls from extreme poverty or even commercial sexual exploitation, I have witnessed the devastation it causes to the body, mind, and soul of a trafficked human being. The only remedy to this is sincere and true love and affection that helps them to recover, to gain self-esteem, and to start dreaming for a better future. Since 1999, hundreds of girls found a warm home and have been well equipped to pursue each of their personal goals. Most of them completed graduate studies and obtained jobs in the private and public sectors. Others are working in our own schools as well qualified teachers or in our school's administration. The best reward and satisfaction for us that makes us for all the tiredness and difficulties we're facing is to see the smile lighting their beautiful faces and the happiness in their eyes. We see them growing up nicely and dreaming of their future, excelling in their studies, finding good work, and finally making their own beautiful and happy families. In 2010, an English medium high school was established where some of our orphan girls already have jobs as administrators or teachers. Why our own English medium school? In 2009, the financial crisis began in Greece. As a result, the donations were greatly decreased. We became quite anxious about how to cover the school fees of our children who are attending private schools. For this reason, we converted a building that it was supposed to be a technical school into a full-day high school. In that same year, 2010, when financially we were in great need as donations from Greece had almost ceased due to the financial crisis there, God opened a door in San Jose. With the blessing of His Eminence, Metropolitan Gerasimos of San Francisco, I had been invited by St. Basil, the great parish, to present the mission in India. Since then, San Jose and Philly became our guardian angels of our orphanages and school. In 2010, a boys' orphanage was established for abandoned orphan boys who, without help, would likely become thieves or criminals in general, or worse, become victims of group rape, a common practice in India. In order to get the necessary recognition and affiliation from the Board of Education, we started the construction of a new school building according to the rules and standards of the Indian Board of Education. This has been a massive project that God helped us to build by touching the hearts of generous people. Already the ground floor plus 2 more floors are completed and furnished. The important 4th floor is as yet unfinished and unsponsored. On May 2019, we celebrated the inauguration and the blessing of the new school building by our Metropolitan Constantinos of Singapore. Joining us was Father Ignatius of Madagascar, who worked as a missionary in India for 13 years, the ambassador of Greece, and the ladies representatives of Philly, our main sponsor from San Jose. What we are doing with the grace of God and the support of our donors and benefactors is a drop in an ocean of needs in India. However, as St. Paul wrote to the Galatians 6:9-10, let us not get weary while doing good, for in due season we shall reap if we do not lose heart. Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all. To all is irrespective of color, race, caste, or belief. Mother Teresa of Kolkata used to say, not all of us can do great things, but we can do small things with great love. And it is not how much we do, but how much love we put in that action. I would like to close my presentation with a quote of a speech of our Ecumenical Patriarch and that I always remember. Sacrificial and unconditional love is the key to the solution of any problem and the criterion of our own salvation. Thank you very much for your love and support for our humble efforts. I wish every blessing from our Lord to you and your families, and I request that you pray for us. Thank you. That was Sister Nektaria's presentation. Again, we apologize for her not being able to join us in person. And our now Rosa is going to introduce our next speaker, who is someone from our own backyard, Laurel. Rosa?
Prevention before harm is the purpose for the efforts of the nonprofit Wisdom International, and our final speaker today is its founder and president, Laurel Botsford. Laurel works tirelessly to prevent human trafficking before its harm happens to anyone, and especially to our children. After living for 30 years abroad, being a successful businesswoman and living in different cultures, she has now turned her talent to healing humanity from the scourge of this crime. Laurel began her anti-trafficking career in 2014, where for 4 years she delivered prevention education as a volunteer for the nationally acclaimed Shared Hope International. In 2018, she opened her nonprofit Wisdom International with the mission to protect children and educate the public through presentations and workshops on the prevention of human trafficking. Through individual, community, and county-led trainings, as well as by organizing collaborative multi-agency events, she has made a significant impact on the prevention and awareness of human trafficking in the San Francisco Bay Area. Laurel stands for Prevention Before Harm as an integral part of ending human trafficking. Prevention education stands equal with all anti-trafficking efforts. Laurel?
There we go. I think you can hear me. I hope. Unmute myself. Here we go. There we go. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for the introduction, Rosa, and thank you very much to our Archbishop and our sister from abroad. It's very interesting to always hear about other countries and the problem. It is definitely a global problem. And I would like to, you can go ahead and start sharing my PowerPoint. What I'd like to actually add to the definition that our Archbishop gave is that 3 little words, they seem little, but they are integral to any type of trafficking. And those are force, fraud, and coercion. They're key words in this, in understanding the scope of this particular issue. They always play a part in the trafficking, whether it's sex trafficking or whether it's labor trafficking. And they, in a court of law, at least here in the United States, an adult has to prove that either force, fraud, or coercion was the reason that they were doing what they were doing. A child does not have to prove this, even though it is still the reason why they are doing something they don't want to do. So, so here we have at this first slide, forms of child sexual exploitation. They include pornography, sexual abuse, and sexual activity of any kind, because a child cannot consent to sex. Okay, I'm going to be, because it is the prevalent problem right here in the immediate Bay Area, not just California. California has lots of labor trafficking as well, but I'm going to be centering in on sex trafficking with this presentation. But the issue is not only against girls and women. That's why I put there all genders. It's not only boys and men, it's any gender identification. they are targets, if they are something other than a boy or a girl, they identify otherwise because they're already marginalized by society. And where those three forms of sexual exploitation enter into trafficking is when there is an exchange for something of value for the services that they are being required to do. And that can be money, it can be food, it can be simply shelter. It doesn't have to be money all the time. It can even be just a cigarette that they will, sell their body to have a cigarette just to be able to endure what's happening to them. Next slide. So very quickly, what I'm going to do is show you some statistics, basically. These are global pathways. My colleagues from Homeland Security provided me with this map, which clearly shows the extent of the trafficking and smuggling, but trafficking that goes on in the United States. We are definitely what's called a destination country for this. However, mostly in the form of sex tourism, when Americans will travel abroad and abuse children, mostly in countries such as in India and such as in London and in England. It does go that way too, but definitely we are a destination where all the countries are sending their people here in order to be trafficked. We have a voracious appetite for the child body, unfortunately. Next slide. A little bit closer to home, this is a map from our National Human Trafficking Resource Center, and it's showing the amount of trafficking that is reported to the center with the red areas, the red and orange areas that are indicated here. And I want to highlight California. You see that the southern end of California is rampant hot red. And then you also see that from the San Francisco Bay stretching all the way past Sacramento is also hot red. We are the #1 state in the nation repeatedly year after year for the amount of trafficking that we have. Next slide. A little bit closer to home here, we're concentrating on the Bay Area, but I have said there, Los Angeles and San Diego are the first 2 cities in California with the most amount of trafficking, but San Francisco is #3. Sacramento is #4. Okay, San Jose, okay, #5. Fresno 6, but then we have Oakland, Stockton, and Fremont close behind them. And the reason I've highlighted some of those is that they are about an hour and a half or 2 hours away from wherever you're living in the San Francisco Bay. This means that a trafficker can pick up a child in one place, and because of our highway and bridge systems all around the Bay, they can whisk the kids over, use them in another county or in another city, and then whisk them back before anybody really even realizes they have been taken, that they've been gone. So this is a real problem, okay? Next slide. And who is it that it's happening to? We consistently say that the age group is from 12 to 14, but look, here we've got, again, statistics from our national hotline, our National Resource Center. The highest category there you see is the 15 to 17-year-olds. And these are the first time that these people have been trafficked. Close behind them are the 12 to 14-year-olds. And close behind them are the 18 to 20-year-olds. So when I'm speaking to middle school and high school age kids, I emphasize this because I say for the next few years, you are the targets that these traffickers are going to be trying to lure into trafficking. And then I always highlight the 0 to 8, way over on the left-hand side there, age group, because that is the 4th highest category of when the children were trafficked for the very first time. This means that babies, toddlers, very, very young children are being trafficked, being used for sex by adults. Next slide, please. I've put this in to make sure that everybody does understand that it happens, again, to all genders. We believe that it's about 50% that are taken, that are actually identifying as boys. This is a little bit, that's not what the statistics say, okay, but it is believed because of the stigma of saying that you are a trafficked victim, already difficult for a girl or a woman to say, but with our emphasis on being macho and being strong and being in control as males in our society, then it has an additional level of inability to speak out when they have been trafficked. Next slide. In the video, if you do stay for it, it will be highly targeting, emphasizing women, but just remember everything that's being said is about boys as well. So how can we be prepared? One of the questions already was about being a trusted adult. The way that I teach it to your children and to your grandchildren is just exactly this, that their interest in sex is completely natural and normal. Okay, it is a natural human experience. The traffickers, however, know this, and they target this age group because they are vulnerable, because they are impressionable. And what we need to do is to teach them that their brains are not yet developed in the decision-making area of the brain, which is the frontal cortex, to make sound decisions. And it is utmost importance to have a trusted adult in their life. And I tell the people, kids or the adults that I'm speaking to, that we have to develop these relationships now so that everyone will be prepared if something actually does start to happen. Okay, we can talk more about that later if you would like, but let's go on to the next slide for now. So who are these traffickers? These are statistics from my partners in the FBI. Friends, neighbors of the victim, people who are known to the victim. That is the highest category, 59% in a recent presentation by them 2 months ago. After that is 34% family members. And I have also put in there traditional and generational sex trafficking, which is the indigenous populations, a huge problem that's happening there. 7% are strangers. So our teachings of stranger danger, they still apply. However, in the case of human trafficking, it is not the strangers that we need to be teaching as watch out a little bit. And let's take a look at some of the different signs. It'll be a little bit later, but go on to the next slide. So who are the buyers? You can hit it once more time. Buyers look like anyone else, just like traffickers look like anyone else nowadays. There is no way of looking at somebody and saying, there's one, okay? And the buyers are in conjunction with the trafficker going for the C-sex child. This is a commercially sexually exploited child. The child is also accessed directly by the buyer. And so it is a very destructive triangle that the poor child is trying to survive and be protected from. Next slide. So how does this happen so quickly to people? A lot of it is happening online nowadays, and one of the main problems is sexting. So let's go ahead with the next slide to watch a 2-minute clip on how quickly sexting, which everyone understands, can turn into sextortion. And we'll explain that. Go ahead.
Hi, Zach. Here's another video from my special guy. I can't believe we haven't talked all day. I wish you went to my school or a little closer so we could finally meet.
Take it up. Dinner in an hour. Don't spend too long on the phone.
Okay,
Every survivor tells them not to have laptops in bedrooms. You can keep let it run.
waiting for
You
this.
can let it run.
Wow. So I wanted to give you something special.
Look who she thinks she's speaking to, but who she's actually speaking to.
Is this okay?
Here comes the threat. This is what he will post to everyone who doesn't comply again. I want you to notice how disheveled she starts to look now as well.
Who are you? Why are you doing this?
These are the signs you can watch out for. Someone who is bubbly and happy and turning into what you'll see in a moment. And look at all of the others that he is doing this to. So if it is happening to someone that you know, first know that they are not alone, that help is out there, and they should reach out. If it's a child, they should reach out to their trusted adult. And if it's an adult, you can reach out to the support groups that we're going to be talking about. Next slide.
Hi, Zach. Here's another video from
Go ahead, next slide. Yes, go ahead and fill this one out as well. This is part of the problem. Sexting is something that, you can hit it one more time, that teenagers are doing. And it is, when I speak to adults like I'm doing now, I give you the words, you are the first generation, as if you're speaking to your children, your grandchildren. So you can tell them that we understand it's your way of communicating. However, you must know that sexting is illegal. It is considered a distribution of child pornography. Age is not a factor, whether you're sexting to a friend or you're sexting to an adult. It's still illegal. Prosecution can affect you in many different ways. You are sometimes required to register as a sex offender. So there is nothing good with sexting. And that person that you first sent that nude photo or video to possibly was a friend, okay, but now you've fallen out, and then they, in order to get revenge on you, they will post, without your authorization, they will post what you sent to them and blast it out to the world. And to begin with, the first thing is, once you put anything online, it's not yours anyway any longer. Sometimes it turns into sextortion, like you just saw in the video, where they were just extorting for more images. Maybe they'll extort for money. Maybe they'll extort for whatever reason, okay? But then also when it turns into sex trafficking is when, again, there is this force, fraud, and coercion, which has been in play in sextortion anyway, but in exchange for something of value. Okay, so we highly recommend that you talk to your grandchildren and your children about this. Next slide. This is where it's happening nowadays, on your children's phones. Okay, so don't be shy about developing a relationship with them, to understand that you can check what's going on their phone, and that it is for their own protection. Next slide. Go ahead and fill this one out. So you can talk to them in this way too. You can tell them, remember the slide of who is being trafficked. So if you're under 18, you walk alone to school or to the store, you can fill it out again. You have access to a phone or computer, you desire romantic relationships, feel insecure, misunderstood, fight with your parents. We are basically describing what it is to be a teenager, okay? Sometimes you will have a history of prior sexual abuse. And I tell the children, if there is anything that is happening like this to you right now, the abuser will have told you not to tell anybody. but that is not how you can be protected. You must come forward and tell your trusted adult that this is happening so that we can get you out of it and to change the scenario for you. If you have experience with the foster care, it's also a huge flag for, unfortunately, the children that are caught in that are also sex trafficked. If you're a runaway, you want more independence, you're testing your boundaries, you enjoy the thrill of taking risks. Again, I'm speaking as if you're speaking to your children. This is, again, puts you at a more vulnerable situation for traffickers. And then, of course, if you have any developmental disabilities, you are even more vulnerable because your capacity of reasoning and even trusting, where they trust too much, are not working to par. So how can you be tricked? We just saw some very quick methodical grooming. You'll see more if you do stay with the video at the end. The approach that is being used is normally the Romeo pimp. He makes you or she makes you fall in love with them, and then they start extorting more from you or trafficking you through other means. If you can be tricked by a spotter who is normally one of your peers who is also under the control of a trafficker and therefore unable to not do his or her job of recruiting you for that trafficker. Okay, false advertising, very common in this modeling or acting or dancing jobs that are not that at all once they come to them. We saw the befriending in chat rooms and profile sharing and things like this, big time. Sometimes here in the United States, sometimes we use the force, fraud, and kidnapping, such as in the movie Taken that has already been mentioned. But it's not the most common way that it's done here. The love and, the love relationship, the Romeo pimp style is the style. And then, of course, because I want to make sure people understand it, children being sold by their parents is a very high probability. For various reasons, we can go into those reasons later through the Q&As if you'd like. I've put here a link to a very important pornography website, Fight the New Drug. I highly recommend that everyone, we will give this out in the, what's it called, in the chat, the link to this, because highly recommend that all of you go to this website and to get the facts about pornography, because it is a huge area where we've got a problem as well. Next slide, please. So again, talking to your children or grandchildren, you want them to start asking, could I or my friend or my sister or my brother, my classmate be a victim of trafficking? So next slide, let's look at some of these red flags. Warning signs would be unexplained absence from class, because if you are out all night working for your trafficker, well, you're going to be sleeping maybe at home during the day, or you're overly tired in class. You can't keep your eyes open in class. Less appropriately dressed than before. We saw that a little bit with the clip that I showed. Sexualized behavior that is improper for their age. Okay, brags about having a lot of money. The Archbishop mentioned this, that suddenly they've got money you don't know where it's come from, or the phones that you don't know where it's come from. They have new displays of expensive clothes. They talk about wild parties that really you don't have any idea why they're even going there or who they're going with. Significantly older boyfriend or girlfriend, new friends with a different lifestyle, already mentioned as well, appears withdrawn, signs of trauma, you saw that in the short clip, and any kind of branding, new tattoos. The traffickers will brand their property because this is a body to us, but it is a piece of property to a trafficker. That person is just a piece of merchandise, and they will brand it with tattoos like we brand cattle. Next slide, please. So online, people will, if they're being trafficked online, you'll notice that somebody is nervous about getting online at a certain time because their trafficker has told them, be online, I'm going to give you your next assignment. And if you can't get online, then the threats that the traffickers have exposed them to, they will carry them out, such as going after their younger siblings, such as killing their parents, as we already heard about. It's not a joke at all. For instance, if you walk into a child's room and they suddenly turn off the computer, then that would be also another sign that maybe they are being trafficked by an online predator. I know I'm running over a little bit of time, so we'll go ahead to the next slide. And these are resources that I will also make sure that are available to send out to everyone. Some of the warning signs of a trafficker is that we've already talked about it, significantly older than the young companion, promises things too good to be true, is vague about his or her profession, because they're not going to tell the child, well, I'm going to traffic you and make my money off of your body. They're going to be very vague because a lot of jobs can be checked up on, so they can't say that they're the CEO of whatever, okay? So the vagueness is a big red flag. They oftentimes make the victim feel responsible for their own financial situation. And sometimes it is the member of an organized crime or gang. As was already mentioned, guns and drugs have become less important to gangs, not only because of what was mentioned, but also because the human body can be reused over and over and over with just a little bit of food, water, and sleep, okay? Guns and ammunition and all the types of arms that are available, you have to get new product every time you make a sale. So the gangs have clued into this, that it's a lot easier and much more profitable to traffic human beings. That's okay, we can go. I've covered really the next. This is my last slide, resources for faith groups. Shared Hope International is a faith-based Christian organization. And for those of you who wish to become more active and have a very strong faith angle to your presentations, I highly recommend this Faith in Action kit. I have here prayer guide, if I can get it to, maybe it's not even going to, well, anyway, way back here. Not going to show, but anyway, you see it there. The prayer guide is part of that kit, but then they also have the Slaying the Giant prayer guide. And as an example of what's in here, I would like to read one that is on day 2. It's a month of examples. I will take action today. From the scripture, it says, stop imitating the ideals and opinions of the culture around you, but be inwardly transformed by the Holy Spirit through a total reformation of how you think. That's only a beginning. This is from Romans 12:2. Only a beginning of what the resources for faith groups from Shared Hope International have to offer. So I appreciate, thank you very much. I've gone over time. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'd like to open it to any questions at all.
Thank you, Laurel. I do see some questions in the chat. So let's give me one moment to find them. I'm just going to start from the bottom. Okay, so sorry, I have a lot of messages that are coming to me. I have one from Marlo, actually. We can start with this one. This is to Fili. How does one sponsor a child in India to assist in Sister Nektaria's work? And I'm just going to put up some information, but Rosa and Maria, if you want to jump in, I'm going to put up a slide that you can all take a look at, and I'll post links in the chat as well.
Yes, you could just go to fili-inc.com and go to the donate button and just specify where you would like your donations to be, how you would like your donations to be used, whether for sponsoring a child for their education, or for the general operating or any of the outreach programs that they may have. Thank you.
Okay, the comments, I see some comments. I'm just going to skip over the comments. Oh, Julia, is it common for females to be stealing children's and teens?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is. It is not only the boys and men that are the traffickers and the buyers. It is not only the girls and women that are the victims. Okay. It is not only one gender against another. It is anyone. When I say that anyone can be a buyer, it is definitely anyone, male, female, everything in between. Okay, young, old. Okay, normally the youngest so far that statistics from Shared Hope have said is 17 years old as a buyer was the youngest, and 79 years old was the oldest. Girls can traffic, men can traffic, women can traffic. It is everyone, unfortunately, doing everything.
And we have an earlier question from Badeli, which could be directed to Laurel. Has the pandemic made human trafficking worse due to increase in poverty, or has the restriction of borders and travel made a dent?
The pandemic has done nothing but increase the amount of attempts by predators to lure children, and I'm not talking a small increase. It has multifold, increased. The sheltering in place ordinances, everybody needing to find something more to do with their time instead of going to the office. What a lot have done is gone online. There have been recordings by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, recordings of predators discussing how they can now lure and capture the children and entice them to post nude photos because they are also at home. It's got nothing but increase the amount of trafficking that is taking place.
Thank you. That seems to be all our questions. If there are any other questions, you can also feel free to unmute yourselves too and ask. We're monitoring the chat, and you can also ask any questions live. Okay, I'm going to put Laurel's contact in as well, so you all have that.
I tried to do so, but maybe it didn't go in. I've
While
got it in
you're
there,
doing
Maria.
those things, I'm going to say good night to everyone.
Good night.
Good
Or
night.
good
Thank you.
afternoon to all
Thank you
of
very much.
God
Thank
keep
you. Good
all.
night.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you for the
Thank
work
you.
you're doing.
Thank you.
And I hope I'll see some of you. I'll be in the Bay Area probably 2 days. I need to gather up my things.
Okay, great. Would love to see you.
Thank you, Archbishop Nikitas.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night.
And I thank Laurel very much. Laurel does great work. I'm wondering, Laurel, if You can tell us what your organization, other than educating people, what other sorts of help do you offer to victims, or if you do any work for victims at all, or?
Okay, well, thank you for that question. No, my organization is 1000% focused on prevention before harm.
Okay.
I do not want anyone to become a new victim. And there are lots of organizations that are working on through victim services, the law enforcement and everyone that is helping to rescue them, the the legal services that are helping to gain justice for the survivors and everything. But I am solely focused on preventing, and that is why I love to organize these larger events, multi-county, multi-agency events, because then I will speak on prevention and I bring in the other experts, survivors as well, who tell their side of the story so that the community can have a more rounded idea of what's being done to end this and where it still needs to be done. And there's not a lot of funding for prevention, so that would be a great thing to
All right.
put in there.
Great, thank you very much. I don't know, are there any more questions? I know that Laurel has a video that she wanted to share with us, to those who can remain on the Zoom call and watch it. But before that, if there are any more questions, she can certainly answer for us.
Yeah, there's just one more question, and I think that we can share a slide after this with how you can help. It comes from Vicky. How can we help in practical ways?
How can you help in practical ways? You can, if you can become an advocate, such as what I'm doing, and I will train you to present the way that I do. But if that's not what you're comfortable doing, then help us to get into your schools, help us to get into your churches, invite us to come and speak. I have spoken in various levels at churches. I've been the sermon for the day. I've been in the fellowship afterwards. I've been, a little bit in the sermon, and then, quick Q&As in the fellowship. So bringing us in to educate your communities, that is a huge thing that you can do. If you are interested in helping the victims, then all the victim services agencies love to have volunteers that they will also train, as I will train in prevention. They will train you in how to help the victims in the trauma-informed approach. If you want to advocate for changing of laws, because in California, that's another thing with Shared Hope. Okay, Shared Hope's a great organization, and they have what's called, golly, they changed the name just recently. It used to be called Protected Innocence Challenge. It's still the same thing, but a different name. I'm sorry, I'd have to get that later. But what it is they have assessed the laws against child sex trafficking of every state, and they have assessed them according to 40 different criteria. So this gives a wonderful way for the state to know where they need to improve, what they're doing right, and where they can be better. And so looking up, if you happen to not be from California, look up your state on the sharedhope.org website. I'll put that in the chat in a moment. And see where you stand with their new categorizing of this. California needs help, okay? California is consistently one of the lowest as far as the legislation. So there's another way that you can advocate to, approach your lawmakers to say, this is not what we expect from you, and we really want you to do better. So that would be, those are 3 ways: prevention, bringing us in, helping the victims themselves, and legislation.
I see a question here. If you know, what are the penalties for one convicted of online sextortion? Do you have any idea what are the penalties?
For sextortion, not so much. For actual trafficking, then the buyers are getting now usually about 10 years plus a fine. It used to be a lot lighter before. It is not 100%. And if my colleague, I don't see him anywhere, Tatum, if you're still on, you could help me out with that. The trying to get the trafficker, there have been some successful convictions of traffickers. The largest one that I can think of right now is out of San Francisco. It was a fellow named Jeter, and he brutally trafficked 2 young teenage girls from Daly City. He got 99 years to life.
Wow.
Okay, because of the brutal evidence that was presented during that trial. They would not even show the images to us, to the audience. And so there is progress being made. There's a lot more progress I feel that can be. You're still here, Tatum. Would you like to try? Tatum, you can step in. Tatum, do step in, Tatum. Unmute yourself and add your bit to that.
Sorry about that. You're just asking for prosecutions that have occurred in Northern District. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, if that's what you're asking for, I don't have any off the top of my head, but I can tell you that it's a priority for us as Homeland Security Investigations, and the federal U.S. Attorney, Ms. Stephanie Hines, has also made this a priority for her program. For her office. So their prosecutor is Marisa Harris, and she's the lead for human trafficking investigations on the federal side. As you know, also the district attorneys in the region too have prioritized these cases. They're often very difficult, as Laurel knows, and many of you know, because we know the healing process takes a long time. It's very difficult to get the victims to in a place where they can tell their story, which oftentimes results in reliving the trauma. So that's probably one of the biggest challenges we have. But I'm not able to cite any cases. I can certainly provide them after this session if you like. Laurel.
Okay, great. Yeah, that is very important. In as recent as 2016, for instance, in Alameda County, I know that the DA's office had very minimal prosecutions of buyers, and that has greatly changed here now in 2022 because of the focus that Tatum has just explained, that the focus that the DA's offices are putting on this issue.
Laurel, may I say one more thing?
Sure.
Hey, just one thing that we always like to highlight, that it's a very common misperception that we are going to prosecute victims who are not in the United States lawfully. That is not accurate. Us under Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Homeland Security Investigations, victims will always be victims. So we have resources to provide for victims that are here unlawfully. Again, our victim-centric approach, but continued presence is to get them status in the short term while they work towards a T or U visa, as well as employment authorization documents. Working with the NGOs and CBOs, faith-based organizations that are represented here today, working with Laurel and other team members, we be able to get them medical care, et cetera, and also be able to go after the organization with foreign partners overseas. But that is something that I hear many times in the Bay Area, that again, we are focused on prosecuting. Also, we know that's a threat too. The traffickers often say that, right? They say, hey, we're going to call contact immigration. Of course, they steal their, or they withhold their travel documents. But whether or not they have travel documents, they are a victim first, and we are here to support them.
I'd love to thank you for saying that, Tatum, because it is super important. Everybody has an incorrect idea about the aims of Homeland Security and of ICE. You mentioned T visa and U visa so that they understand what this is. A T visa stands for trafficking visa, and it is available to anyone who can prove that they are a trafficking victim. And they would, if they will coordinate their efforts of getting the traffickers with law enforcement, then they are awarded the T visa. A U visa is used for any violent crime, but the T visa is specifically for trafficked people.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone.
And they're available. You just have to reach out and ask for them. They're not being used up to, especially the trafficking. The T visa is not being used up to its full capacity yet. So if you know of anybody who is in that situation that needs these kind of visas, then please have them reach out to Homeland Security or even just to you, and then we can direct you to where they can get help.
Great. Well, thank you very much for all the information, Laurel. That was a lot of information for us.
Yeah.
And I think someone was asking if this information will be available and the slides, and I don't know. I think we can make the recording available. That was the purpose of recording everything.
And I'll provide some resources as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
You can email them out to everybody.
I'm not sure if everybody wants to watch this video that we're going to show next. But if you have to go, we understand. And we thank you so much for being here with us today. We reached the end of our presentation. It was very informative, disturbing, but informative. And we thank all the speakers and all of you for joining us. Thank you, Laurel. Thank you, everyone. You can go ahead and start with the movie now, if you can, Nicole.
Yes.
And if you're, today's event was for free, but if you would like, if you were touched by what you saw and you would like to make a difference, feel free. Our website for donations is up there. It's missing a P, HTTPS. Somehow we missed that, but
he needs to screen share.
You can also,
I'm gonna put the website in again, and then I'll screen share.
Okay, great. The website also is in the flyer and in, I think, the email you got from Eventbrite.
Yes, it's on the Eventbrite notification.
Great. So the proceeds will help these two organizations, Wisdom International, Laurel's group, as well as Sister Nektaria and her amazing work in India. So this is where the money goes. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful afternoon.